3642 is seen charging through the Blue Mountains of New South Wales on Saturday, October 8, 2016, with passengers on the day trip from Campbelltown Station. The 36 class engine is seen at Blaxland. .4520, also from Thelmere, is seen at the rear assisting the train. Then we see the locomotive and its train climbing through Lyndon. Then we see it passing by Private Ronald Field Bridge, which is located on the Great Western Highway. Then we see it rolling through Wentworth Falls Station. We now arrive at the locomotive's first destination on this trip, Katoomba, where passengers will be dropped off for the day. Then we see the locomotive and its train at its second stop, Blackheath, dropping off more passengers. We now conclude this trip with 3642 pulling into its final stop, Mount Victoria, dropping off its final load of passengers before getting ready to head back to Campbelltown. Since it's springtime in Australia, golden wattle can be seen everywhere around various plants. On Sunday, October 16th, 2016, we see Lachlan Valley Railway's 5917 on the Kiama picnic train heading to Kiama in the south coast of New South Wales. Here we see the Baldwin-built locomotive charging through Loftus, which is home to the Sydney Tramway Museum, which we'll see later on in this video. The 59 class engine had just departed Sutherland after picking up booked passengers. We now move to Sublime Point Lookout, and before we see 5917, we take a look at the marvellous sight of the south coast of the 180-degree view. But we are here to see trains. And nearby Thirroul, we see two Pacific National diesel locomotives pulling an empty coal train. They will soon stop on a refuge line. Next we see 5917 making its way towards Thurul. One of its stops to pick up more booked passengers before Kiama.
There's a little movement before the photo, it's tripping me out. On my leg. What's that shit?
It's like live stuff. What?
Meanwhile, the Sydney Trains Electric is making its way back to Sydney. We say farewell to the lookout and move to Bombo Beach, with wonderful crystal clear water from the spring sunshine, where we see 5917 nearing its destination for the day, Kiama. At Kiama, 5917 now shuts its carriages into a siding, as will be turned round ready for its return run to Sydney. Meanwhile, a vintage plane is doing loops in the sky. 5917 is now shunting itself into position to be filled up with more water. With the warmer months coming into Australia, we once again see Manildra wheat trains passing through. Now we see the 59 class engine ready to be turned round. But first, the engine needs to be balanced so it will turn properly. The last time we saw this locomotive on this turntable was in October 2015, and the table was bare. Now it's been fitted with frames. The locomotive will now be turned by manpower. With the job done, 5917 heads away to its carriages. We now move to Mortdale on Saturday, October 22nd, 2016. Here we see one of the Garratt trains pulling out of Mortdale Maintenance Depot, which was opened in 1925 and maintained these types of trains for the eastern suburbs in the Illawarra Line and the South Coast Line. The Garratt sets, or T-sets as abbreviated, were delivered between 1988 and 1995 and are the third generation trains. It's a double-deck 4-car set, with the 2 outer cars being driver-controlled trailers fitted with one pantograph each, and the middle 2 cars being non-control motor cars. Tangara is an Aboriginal word meaning to go. We now see 5917 passing through after picking up passengers at Central and Hurstville. Later on, we are at Oatley, with the late afternoon sun now shining. The station is given an upgrade with new lifts and stair access to Oatley Parade and Mulga Road, with 100 spaces for a commuter car park. We will now see 5917 charging through Oatley after being filled with more water at Waterfall, heading towards Sydney with a stop at Hurstville to drop off more passengers. Then we see the locomotive and its train passing through Carlton after dropping off passengers at Hurstville on Sunday, October 23rd, 2016. The locomotive is now heading for Sydney. As the sun sets over at Carlton Station, this will be the last time we see 5917, as we'll be going in for an overhaul. There'll be no more picnic trains for the time being, It's Sunday, October 23rd, 2016. And on this day, we see Australian Railway Historical Society ACT Division 6029 pulling into Gosford from Hawkesbury River, providing shuttles from Gosford to Hawkesbury River Station. 6029 is pulling in, ready for its first shuttle service. The Society's 44 class diesel locomotive 4403 is at the back of the train assisting. We hop on board the train, and 4403 is leading the train towards Hawkesbury River. The train now arrives at its destination, Hawkesbury River. Now we see 6029 making its return journey back to Gosford. Here we see the locomotive crossing the famous Hawkesbury River Railway Bridge. The locomotive is now returning into Gosford Station. At Gosford, 6029 now simmers down as a crowd of admirers look at the magnificent locomotive. It's now time for 6029's second trip to Hawkesbury River. The wagon between the first carriage and the locomotive is also a water gin, preserved down at Canberra as well. We now move to Woy Woy Station, and before we see 6029, we see a Pacific National coal train make its way through. Next we see the 60 class Garratt locomotive charging through. We then see it again charging through from Hawkesbury River from its third shuttle. Later on, we see 4403 pulling into Hawkesbury River Railway Station. The locomotive and its train are now seen being pulled into the refuge track, this time on its fourth shuttle. We will now conclude this trip here with 6029 departing for Gosford once again. At Oakley Station on Sunday, November 6, 2016, Transport Heritage New South Wales' 3642 is seen taking a trainload of booked passengers to Loftus to visit the Sydney Tramway Museum.
First stop Como, then Janelli, Sutherland, and then all stations to Cronulla.
The train's just arrived, so board it as quick as you can. We'll be on the way. Thank you.
At Loftus, we see O1111 and 805 taking passengers from the train, and they will be making their way to Royal National Park Station, which was part of the New South Wales Government Railway from 1886 until it was closed due to low patronage in 1991 and was acquired by the Tramway Museum in 1993. The two trams will now depart for Royal National Park. We then see the two trams on their return trip. The building on the right is the former Railway Square waiting shed, which stood in the middle of the street near Sydney Central Station from 1907 to 1973, and was painstakingly restored by volunteers of the museum and is now part of the picnic area. (805), who is now leading 01111 into the terminus, is leased from the Powerhouse Museum, now named Museum of Applied Arts and Science.
Trams, a couple set of trams have just arrived back, and we'd like everybody to leave the tram now.
This tram we see here is Dreadnought 180, built by T. Gardner and Son in 1924 for the Brisbane Tramway Trust, and the name for 180 was of course named after the HMS ship, which was one of the first large ships of the Royal Navy, and also because of their large appearance alongside the other trams of Brisbane, Queensland. 805 is the only one of its type operating in Australia. It was popular during the summer months, as it had no glass pane in any of the side windows. This was the day before the invention of air conditioning, and today it runs at Loftus during the warmer months.
Now just on 2012.
We say farewell to the museum and move to Janali, as 3642 heads back to Sydney with its passengers from its first run 10 to 1st. The locomotive had been serviced at Waterfall. A turntable is still there at Waterfall, but sadly there's no access to it for the locomotive.
Customers on platform 1. The next train does not stop at this platform. Please stand behind the yellow line. Please stand clear.
We now move to Mortdale, and 3642 is now seen leading the train forward on its second trip to Loftus. We will now conclude this trip with 3642 puffing back to Sydney 10 to 1st at Penshurst from Loftus. Despite that, 3642 will be having 2 more shuttle trips by Heritage Express in December 2016. This is where we will conclude Rail Around New South Wales for 2016. Rail Around New South Wales would like to give thanks to all Railway Heritage organisations in New South Wales for a wonderful 2016, and we look forward to be following their locos again in the new year. Rail Around New South Wales would also like to give thanks to all the viewers for watching and supporting this series, and we will return in April 2017.